Folks, we're back again. Welcome to another episode of the Soul Sessions, as featured here on Wrestling Republic. Now get ready, folks, for he is the bastard son, Bevis, as well as the owner of No Mercy Wrestling. How you doing, pal?
I'm very, very good. How are you?
No, I'm very well, my friend. Welcome. Welcome, of course, to the show. Now, I want to get into yourself before we go into No Mercy Wrestling. What was your initial, introduction to the world of wrestling?
No, I'm going to show my age here. Now, my earliest memories are a little bit earlier than some that you've probably had on, but I think my first ever memory of wrestling was Ultimate Warrior and Hogan, WrestleMania 6.
Ooh, a classic.
Yeah. So I was watching Manias when it was single digits, so I'll just leave it there for the age. But yeah, WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Ultimate Warrior, it was like, to me, how old was I? I was young, put it that way. And I just saw these guys on TV and they were like superheroes to me, it was like they were huge guys, they were all colorful, especially Ultimate Warrior. Obviously, back then I didn't know that he was probably one of the worst workers in the world, but still it was the character and the intensity that he brought in. I just saw these like big behemoth guys like fighting for what seemed to be like for their lives, and I was just hooked instantly. And ever since then it's just been in my blood.
It's just the heart pumping and living the lifestyle, isn't it, my friend?
Absolutely.
Very much so. Now, how did you decide to go on to become, training as a wrestler? Was it just a moment in your life that just hit it, or was it something that you saw? What was the story of that?
I started training like a lot later than most people. I started training in my late 20s. Obviously, most people will start, in their early teens or mid-teens or even early 20s, some people. But yeah, I did plan to start training when I was like 14, 15 at the time. But at that time, especially where I lived, I grew up in West Wales, like as far west as you can get, where there's basically nothing. And it was like there was nothing to do with a wrestling school. Like I didn't even know they existed for a start. I just thought when I was like 12, 13, I thought the way to become a wrestler was you sent in a tape to like WWF at the time, and then Vince McMahon was like, yeah, I'll have him. That's how I thought it happened, And so I wanted to do it when I was like 14, 15, and there was one reputable school, put it that way, in the whole of the UK, which was Hammerlock, NWA Hammerlock. And I was planning on going to them, but the only thing is they were in Newcastle, which from where I was at the time, you're talking a good 6 to 7 hours. So it was a lot different to what it is now, where you can just train whenever you want, wherever you want. But so back then it was kind of like you had to go to camps and you'd have to train for like 2 weeks at a time, and then you'd stop and then do another 2 weeks or whatever. And obviously very expensive too. So yeah. So because I was under 16, I had to get my parents' permission, and my mother wouldn't let me do it, unfortunately, because she was like, I'm not letting you go to Newcastle when you're 15 years old on your own to sleep in a sweaty gym on mats, because obviously that's all I could have done. I didn't have enough money for a hotel or anything. And so that was the end of my dream there. And then yeah, about 15 years later I actually started.
Yeah, well, like you chased your dreams and you finally achieved it in the end. That's the only thing that matters, my friend.
Yeah.
You mentioned starting later on in life, in your late 20s. We had August Artois from EC3's Control Your Narrative, and he started later in his life as well. And he talked about maybe facing some ageism from some people, his age, and be a bit of discrimination. Do you feel that as well, or were you welcomed into your training process?
Training school wise, it was absolutely fine. I started in a place down here in Wales, in South Wales. It was actually the same place that James Ellis started in, that you had him on the other day. It was exactly the same place. But yeah, I was welcomed in, no problem. Like no one really said anything about my age. There was people of all kinds of backgrounds there. There was, there was older people, there was younger people, there was kids as young as 11, 12 there, so from all kinds of backgrounds as well. So it was very inclusive. I find wrestling in general is very inclusive. Obviously, you will get the odd place where it's a bit dodgy, but as a whole, I would say wrestling is very inclusive, which is why I think a lot of, for lack of a better term, misfits feel welcome in wrestling, because it is that welcoming, and you can belong in a place where you never could before, So I think that's a good thing about it. But yeah, I've never really faced much ageism or anything like that. More, I'd say actually, it's more, especially when you get to the point where you're on shows. it's actually more welcomed because people will actually see you as a bit more mature, a bit more experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually will put their trust in you a little bit more because obviously, not that, younger wrestlers don't have that, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it's helped me more than anything rather than hindered me.
Oh, good. That's great to hear. Now, obviously, going into your first match as well, you mentioned James Ellis, who we've had on recently. He talked about how he got into his first match and he was shitting bricks, shall we say. For your first match, were you sort of the same? You were just like, nah, I got this shit. I'm a natural. Bring it on.
I was outwardly, I had that. I had a thing of confidence about me, but inward, I was crap in it. It was really, really scary. It wasn't so much about what I was going to be doing in the ring. It wasn't so much my ability because I knew what I could do, but it was more stepping out of the curtain for the first time, not knowing how the crowd are going to take you, not knowing how the crowd are going to react to you. Mm-hmm. I think that was more the nerve-wracking thing. As soon as I was out there, as soon as I was in the ring doing my thing, I was fine. It was great. But yeah, it was just that first initial step through the curtain moment where I was like, this is it. This is what I've been training for years, and it's here like that. So yeah, it was more, I'd say the nerves were more about that rather than actually the ring stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't imagine, the sort of adrenaline feeling you get as soon as you're hitting the ropes, hitting your opponent, and you're feeling that crowd energy as well. I can't imagine what that must feel. It must feel absolutely invigorating and pure joy with all that adrenaline.
It is. It's a huge adrenaline rush. And I still get it to this day. Like, if anyone says they don't get it still, then they're either lying or they need to stop wrestling because it's what keeps us going, it's what keeps us coming back. Like, when you think about it, like when you write this, if you wrote it down on a piece of paper and explaining what we do, it's quite stupid and nuts, really, when you think about what we actually physically do with our bodies for entertainment, for the love of it. And it's like, we do it because we love it and we love that feeling every time we step in the ring. And every time we step in the ring, I get that adrenaline rush every single time, no matter how long I've been doing it, no matter who I'm working, I always get that. And I think as soon as that leaves, that's probably the time to hang the boots up, I think.
I hear you there. And you mentioned like how times are changing and sometimes everything has a definitive definition of what it is and what it always will be. I personally feel that wrestling is something that's definition will always be changing with the times and that the performers or whatever art is adapting. From obviously when you started watching when you're younger to where we are now, do you see an evolution in the business of where it's changed definition wise?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, if you're talking early 90s, mid 90s, it was a lot more cartoonish, as you know. You've got everyone knows the story. WWF at the time, everyone had to have a job as their gimmick. There was the dustman, there was the accountant, there was the clown. Everyone had to have a profession, and yeah, obviously it's gone through its differences and its changes throughout the years. But I'd say at the core, wrestling will always be the same. It will always be, entertaining people, no matter what kind of wrestling it is. Obviously, there's different types of wrestling. You've got death matches, you've got camp show wrestling, you've got, super indie wrestling. There's many, many different styles. But at the core of it, it's just trying to entertain people, right? So I think that's what will never change in it, or shouldn't change about it. Certain wrestlers, like depending on what generation they've come up in, I would say, let me choose my words carefully here. I would say they need to kind of think more about wrestling for the show rather than themselves. There's a lot of people, a lot of younger wrestlers coming up now who seem to forget that, it's a show, it's an overall show at the end of the day. You can't make every match the main event. You can't make every match a 5-star match. You can't make every match have every kind of style in it. Shows have got to have different matches, a variety, hence why it's a variety show, So I think that would be the one thing I would want to tell people if they're coming up as well, is wrestle for the show rather than for yourself,
Exactly. It's a team effort at the end of the day. You're trying to send the crowd home happy, and that's the main thing at the end of the day. You're allowed to, elevate yourself and show off what you can do, but at the end of the day, you're a team effort, put on the best show you can with what you got.
Exactly.
You meant entertainment style, people with the characters. And when I saw pictures you sent me for your thumbnail, I looked at yourself with the whole face paint in the skull, and I was like, holy fucking shit, that's intense. Where did that come from? Because fuck me, that is like That's nightmare fuel. I can scare the fucking piss out.
I actually only just debuted that look on our Halloween show on October 30th. So I only just started doing it. I've had that idea for a while. I had it in the back of my mind just for a little bit, and I've been planning it for about a year, just trying to find the right place to debut it, trying to find the right place to get it to slot in, because obviously that sort of look, that sort of character, it has to be done for a reason. I can't just randomly pop out like that and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's got to be there for a reason. So the whole idea was the guy who was wrestling, Tom Farman, one of my trainees. He was like, ironically as well, is the guy I had my first ever match with too. So it was a nice full circle moment. Yeah. So the whole thing was we were having a rivalry in No Mercy for a little bit, where he was feeling underwhelmed and feeling underappreciated, so he kept attacking his opponents at the end of the match. And me, being the owner of the promotion, I'm coming out to stop him all the time. I'm like, No Mercy isn't about this. No Mercy is about respect and honor. So we had a little bit of a tiff going. We had a little bit of an argument, and then the show before the Halloween show, he decided to get a little bit brutal and tap me with a chair and legitimately cut me open as well. And so it was a little bit intense. So we were like, all right, let's have a blow off. Let's have a street fight. And because it was a Halloween show, because I was thinking about doing this character for a while, and because it was like, it's kind of like a desperate times call for desperate measures type of thing. So I've kind of differentiated myself. So Bevan is me, and then the bastard son is that. So that's kind of like the monster within me, so that I bring out whenever I need some kind of special desperate times, desperate measures type of thing, So I've kind of molded it on like Finn Balor's demon type of thing.
Okay.
So he only brings the demon out when he has to. And that's what I'm planning to do with the bastard son. So yeah, it was really good fun. It was that face paint. Yeah, I didn't really plan how I was going to do it. I didn't practice it. I just kind of went in with the mirror and just went, right, let's go, and just whatever I was feeling at the time. Because that's what I do before my matches. I get into a headspace and I get into like my own little world. Because you've got to become who you are in the ring. If you don't believe who you are in the ring, the crowd ain't going to believe it. I'm a huge proponent of that. And so I spend a good amount of time before my match, like getting into my persona that I am in the ring, because the more you believe it, the more that they're going to believe it, so it works. So yeah, I just literally got in front of the mirror and just started painting. And I was like, let's see what happens. Let's see what comes out. And that's what came out. And I guess that's what was inside me at the time. So it worked. I think it was quite cool.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm fucking like, holy shit, that is something. I mean, I see that kind of look at the bar at 2 a.m. after 6 Oxford Jaeger, but I mean, holy shit, that's oh God, terrifying look there. Make me stop drinking. I can't. I'm always drinking. Gotta get it, that whiskey in me. Yeah.
Because I had a mask as well to come out with for my entrance. Yeah. And I had like new gear and a new entrance jacket made, and yeah, and I did the whole entrance thing. I got this, like, the reason I debuted it at No Mercy as well is because my entrance, the music for that entrance is like a minute long before I actually come out. So it's a long introduction, and it's like Icelandic war drums and like Mongolian throat singing. It's very intense, and all the lights are down. There's smoke and lights and the whole shebang. So I was like, I should probably debut this at No Mercy at my own promotion, because if I went to another promotion and did that, I'd probably be taking the piss a little bit. So I was like, let's try it here first. Let's try it at home, see if it works. If it works, then maybe I can shop it about and see what happens. But
yeah, it's like David. I was like, sorry lads, the God of War is here. I'm coming out with my minute-long entrance music. You will respect me, and I will do what I need to do.
I was in the main event. I booked it. Why not? Let's do it.
Go all out, man. Go all out.
Little bit of a an ego thing, but at the end of the day, it's the only thing I've done to boost myself at my own shows. So it's like, why not?
It's great, phenomenal. Keep going for it. I'm all for it. I'm sure all the viewers will be all for it, and all the No Mercy fans will be all for it, my friend. Don't you worry there. Now let's talk about No Mercy's inception. How did No Mercy Wrestling come to be?
Well, it was like a lot of things in wrestling lately. It all came from the pandemic. So before the pandemic, I was at training school. My class, not the first one that James Ellis went to, but the one I went to after that. I was with them for about 2 years. The pandemic hit. World basically stopped, right? So we obviously all had to stop training. Certain things happened where I just fancied that I just felt like I had to move on. I was like, it's time to move on, time to go somewhere else. So I was looking around and I was like, well, everywhere's closed. You know, the pandemic closed a lot of places. A lot of schools closed down. A lot of schools didn't reopen. So I was trying to figure out what should I do? What should I do? There's nowhere in Wales open, and I was in Swansea at the time. So I was like, shit, where do I go? I had nowhere to go. My only options were traveling into England. And at the time, obviously, because of the pandemic, that was a no-go.
Yeah. So
I was like, what should I do? What should I do? And then one of my friends, we were just hanging out one night, and it was on we were on Zoom. We were doing a Zoom quiz and all this stuff, as you did back in the pandemic, you know. And so we were just chatting away, you know, a couple of my mates, and I was just browsing Facebook randomly, and a wrestling ring popped up on Marketplace, on the Facebook Marketplace. And I was like, and I showed it to him. I was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I bought this, you know, just messing around? Didn't even think anything of it. And then one of my mates was, well, why don't you? And I was like, I had the resources to do so at the time. So I was like, do you know what? Let's do it. So I messaged the guy. I was like, can I buy the wrestling ring? He was like, yeah. And that was it. Within literally from an hour from me messing about and joking about it to the next day, I bought a wrestling ring and I put this thing in motion. But yeah, my original plan wasn't to make a promotion or make a school or anything like that. It was literally because of the pandemic, because no one had anywhere to train. I was literally going to just buy the ring, set it up in some kind of industrial unit somewhere, and just have it there for myself and my mates to train in, you know, just because we didn't have anyone else to go. And that was the original plan. And then it snowballed, and then it got from that, and then it turned into, because there was, as I said, there was nowhere else open. It kind of turned into an open gym type of idea. So I had the facility, I had the ring in the facility. I built up a little gym in there. I made a promo area with cameras and lights. So I myself as well do music. So at the time I was doing a lot of custom entrance music for workers around the UK as well. So I'd set up a little recording studio in the office there as well. So I was literally this is something that everyone in wrestling can come to for everything they need. If they want ring time, if they want promo shots, if they want music done, if they want to use the gym, everything's there. So that was the initial plan. And then that started getting popular. A lot of people were coming and they were booking in time. And then within, I'd say, not even that long, within a month, people were on me going, start training, start classes. And I was like, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. You know, I'm happy just doing this. But the amount of people that just kept getting on my back about starting to train people was it became too much to ignore, really. So I was like, I'm going to have to do this. So it turned into a training school. And yeah, I've had I bring in various people to train as well. I'll train the beginners classes. Anything past that, I don't consider myself qualified enough to be at the level to train people in advance or anything like that. So I bring in other people to help out with that. We have someone who helps me out a lot with No Mercy. All of a sudden, he helps out training. We've had Danny Jones, we've had Mike Bird, we've had Kelly Six, Mark Andrews, lots of different people come in and help out with training. So yeah, it was going really, really well. And then again, I had no desire to do a show whatsoever because I know how stressful they are. And I had no desire to be a promoter at all. And again, I had all these people in my back just going, run a show. And then, yeah, less than a year later, here we are, and we're 7 shows in, which is crazy, considering that I said I was never going to do it.
Well, hey, when there's a supply, you're going to meet the demand, my friend.
Absolutely.
And you've done absolutely well for yourself. From, taking the role as a promoter, was there any aspects of history from any other promotions out there that you looked at and thought, yeah, I want to be like them as a promoter?
I take a lot of inspiration from, I'm a huge fan of old school ECW, 90s ECW before it got bought out. Massive ECW mark. That's actually the main wrestling I watched in the late 90s to early 2000s. I didn't watch WCW. All of my mates were into WCW watching the NWO. I was watching Steve Corino and Sandman and Rhino, who's one of my favorite wrestlers, and Mikey Whipwreck and I just watched them all do everything that they were watching, but I'd seen it 2 years prior because they stole all the ideas from it, you know. Same as the Attitude Era. So I did watch the Attitude Era. Don't get me wrong. I was more WWF than WCW, but yeah, I was mainly ECW. Huge fan of that. So whereas I'm hugely inspired by it, I haven't taken like the style of just extreme wrestling. I haven't gone that far, but I've taken just the rugged, you know, punk rock, do it yourself, you know, at home type of feel of ECW and transpired it into No Mercy, but in a professional way, if that makes sense.
No, I hear you. You don't want to be like someone just being like, barbed wire death matches 5 times in a row. Let's see how we go there. No, you gotta make it work.
I'm huge on like long-term storylines. I love like setting up a storyline, say in March, and then letting it run out till like all August or September. You know, I love long term. Long term to me is where it's at, because that's what brings people back. You know, especially like one of our venues. Excuse me, it's called Penrith Khyber Hall, and the crowd that we get there are they come every time. They have the same seats. They sit in the same rows. They sit next to the same people, and they just love it. You know, and they love the storylines. And like I was saying earlier with my street fight with one of my guys, Tom, they watched that whole thing play out for over 3 or 4 months. And then when we had that blow off match in the end of October, it was like everyone like could breathe. They're like, so that's how it's ended. Okay. Now they can't wait to see what's next for me or for Tom or for anyone else, you know? So that's where I lay all of my eggs in the long-term storyline basket. I don't just do, like, don't get me wrong. There are shows where I'll have random matches from outside talent that I'll bring in once or twice. But for the most part, with my guys anyway, I have them in storylines because that's where I think the magic is, you know.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the stories are what captivate us. You know, for me, it's, you know, the whole Hangman Adam Page anxiety storyline from Pandemic and then all the way to Full Gear where he beat Kenny Omega. What kind of storylines do you resonate to and be like, God, they are just art, from execution to longevity? They're just art.
Ironically, this is going to sound very strange, but ironically, since I started a wrestling company, I haven't had much time to watch wrestling. Like, I don't actually watch that much wrestling anymore, which is crazy when you think about it. Like, I watch the odd match here and there, but I can't remember the last time I've sat down and watched an entire show from start to finish, unless it's my own.
Oh, you're a businessman. You gotta run a company. You're a busy man.
So, but like, if I can think back to like the golden era, or like when I was watching it, one of my favorite storylines was obviously Kane and the Undertaker. Like that's 20 years of storytelling right there. You know, I love that kind of stuff. And you know, and Mankind and Mick Foley, the whole thing of Mick Foley from when he Cactus Jack to winning the belt as Mankind, like that to me is one long storyline. And like, that's one thing I'll give Vince is, like, as batshit crazy as he can be, he was a master at these storylines, you know, like there's no denying it. This is why WWE is where it is. But yeah, I'd say that also the Shawn Michaels story from like start to finish as well is just amazing. Like, but yeah, I'd say it's the first like proper storyline I remember was when it was the Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. And the build up for that hooked me. Like, it was so cool. Like, they were showing them training at home, and like it was like Rocky, right? It was like showing the training montages, and I was just like, I didn't know wrestling could be like that, and I was like, that hooked me from the start. So that kind of storyline, I like personal storylines, stuff where it brings in not your complete personal life, but little bits of it here and there. And I think because people like reality, you know.
So, blurring the lines, as they say, you know, sort of like, what's going on here? Yeah. That's the thing that catches people, you know, just that sense of, what's going on here? I don't know if I should fall into it, or am I being a bit hesitant? But blurring the lines is always great to see.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I want to touch about ECW as well. We know that ECW came back under WWE, and Vince McMahon would become the ECW champion. And I want to know, as a fan of the previous ECW, seeing its revival, was it a pure slap in the face to you, or was it like, I understand what it is now, it's not what I fell in love with?
I didn't, if I'm honest, I wasn't watching it at that time. I watched the One Night Stand, both of them.
Oh,
The
fantastic.
first one, absolutely perfect, so good, so good. I still watch it to this. I think what day are we on? This, I think I watched it like 5 days ago. I watch it all the time. I love it. Yeah, when they brought it back and they revived it, I think I watched that first show and I was like, this isn't it. I could sort of see the writing on the wall. I knew what it was going to turn into because
Mhm.
they'd gotten their PG hands into it, and I was like, this isn't going to be it. I would have been perfectly fine with it if they didn't call it ECW. If they called it a completely different brand,
Mhm.
carry on. But you can't call that ECW. Whereas if, as with Vince winning the title, it was a slap in the face, but it was meant to be. Do you get what I
Mhm.
mean? Like they did that but they knew what they were doing with that. They knew that was going to wind all of the ECW marks up, and it did. And hook, line, and sinker, they got them. And so I respect them for that because if I'm honest, I probably would do the same thing. Because it could, as Bischoff keeps saying, cash causes controversy. Other way around, controversy causes cash. So yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing, and yeah, they were right to do it. I would have done exactly the same thing. So I say well done. But yeah, ECW should have died when it died. I don't think they should have called it ECW.
Keep the good memories at the back and ignore Durag Vince. Let's keep the good memories
Oh,
alive.
Durag Vince. Oh no, I
Oh, I'm
forgot
sorry,
about
I caused some PTSD there. Oh, ignore it, ignore it. Forget. Let's bring back to reality.
that.
You're in a safe space, all right? Don't worry. He's gone.
He can't hurt you.
Something about ECW as well. It would have a very iconic world championship with the barbed wire and the blood in it. And I know No Mercy has a very. I like it. I love your championship, the Combat Legacy Championship. I want to know about the inception of that championship because I know you had the sponsorship to help fund the creation of the belt. So, what was the story behind that?
So it's the Combat Legacy title is our mid-tier belt.
Okay.
So it's on the level of, say, the IC or the United States. Yeah, so there's a company called Combat Clothing who they've just started up in the last, say, 6 months or so. Who the guy who runs it, Chris. He actually started creating martial arts wear and gear for like martial arts clubs, and he's a huge wrestling fan. So he came to us and said, "Look, I want to branch into making pro wrestling gear and that kind of things. Would you be interested in working together?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So he created our No Mercy Dojo training wear. We have a whole range of training wear for our trainees. So I've always wanted us to look the best we can, look the most professional. I didn't want No Mercy just to be, excuse me, a ring in a dingy, dusty, crappy unit with no heating and no lights or anything like that, with no toilet, like a lot of wrestling schools are. Let's be honest.
Mm.
I wanted it to be professional. I wanted it to be legit, and that's what it is. It's a legit business. Whereas there are a lot of dodgy wrestling schools around that will just,
Mm.
they're not a company, they're not registered. They just have a ring and say, yeah, give me 15 quid in cash and then bugger off. Like that's what they do. But I
Mm.
wanted it to be legit, so I wanted us to look the best as good as the best as we could. So yeah, I created the training wear line brand with him, and then he moved into making gear, which a lot of my guys took advantage of. A lot of wrestlers around the UK are now taking advantage of, which is good. But yeah, he came to me and said his suppliers, where he gets a lot of his stuff from, can make wrestling belts. So obviously a light went off in my head straight away. I was like, ding. So yeah, I did a little business magic with him and said, look, if you're willing to sponsor a belt for us, we'll get your name on it, and you can present it to the winner when he wins it. And he was all for it. So we did it. So yeah, that's about as easy as I can explain it. He sponsored the belt. We got it designed. Yeah, we wanted it to, because we're based in Caerphilly, we wanted to represent that. And in Caerphilly, one of the biggest icons in Caerphilly is the castle. It's one of the biggest castles in the UK. So we had to have that portcullis on the front of it, with the castle above the logo. And Legacy was about, I kind of wanted it to be, the holders of that belt are going to be like wrestlers. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like your workhorse, your grafters belt. People that put in the work, people that really are committed to this industry and put in the work, and you can see they care about it. hence why James Ellis is our first champion. You know, he is like the epitome of what you want in a good wrestler. That he trains all the time. He's really, really good in the ring, like unbelievable. His character's absolutely phenomenal. He shows up on time. He helps with setup. He helps with teardown if he can, you know, and he's just a good person to have in the locker room. And that's who I want representing my brand, you know? So that's what that belt is for those type of wrestlers that come in to No Mercy and make No Mercy better, and who you can see are proud to work for us, you know? So that's who that belt is for. So that's what I wanted to create with the legacy part of it. But yeah, we will be having a No Mercy championship eventually at some point in the next 6 months, I'd say. Yeah, stay tuned for details of how that's going to go, because it's a big one. It's a very, very big plan.
Well, I'm putting my bets in now. Let's get James Ellis as a double champion. The man deserves it. It's been an absolute pleasure to have him on the show, and I'm rooting for the man.
He's fantastic, honestly. He's so good. It's crazy. I can't put him over enough. Honestly, it's crazy how it happened, because I started about a year before James Ellis did, or a year and a half. And from where he started off to now, it's like chalk and cheese. It's insane. He just, within the lockdowns, basically, he went from a guy who's like wrestling in gloves and Lonsdale boots, and sorry, James, if you're listening, but pretty bad gear. Let's be honest, mate. It was, the gear wasn't great. And, you know, and he wasn't out of shape by any means, but he wasn't as in shape as he is now. And he was just, you know, he was just a regular run-of-the-mill wrestler that you would never take notice of. And then all of a sudden we came out of lockdown and he turned into what he is now. Well, the brilliance started coming out and he got into incredible shape. And his work went from here to here within like a few months. And I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he sold his soul to the devil or something, but he literally, and I tell him this every time I see him, every time I get a chance, I said, you are stepping up every single time you wrestle. You're stepping up your game. And he deserves everything he's getting right now, because he's going to be the breakout star of Wales, I think, next year. Like, he'll be everywhere.
Well, he's got my vote. I mean, hey, Meltzer, if you're watching, most improved star or outstanding star, give it to Mr. Ellis, man. He is the brilliance. Or, you know, come on.
But I'll tell you what. I'll give you one little thing for the new belts. So, the new No Mercy Championship will be sort of tied to the Legacy belt in a way that. So, when you win the Legacy belt, you have 3 defenses. If you are successful in those 3 defenses, you then have the chance to relinquish the Legacy belt and go for the championship.
Ooh, so it's sort of like a Impact X Division sort of
option. Similar to that, yeah. So they do 3 defenses. Now, they don't have to do that. They don't have to relinquish it. They can keep going. But the catch is, then you have to wait for another 3 defenses before you can go for the championship. So if you're happy being the Legacy champion, you got to defend it another 3 times before you can go for the main championship, you know. And then if that happens, if that title is relinquished, then it's a tournament for it. So that's how we're going to keep it interesting.
Well, hey, I dig it right there, and I do love the Combat Legacy Championship. I mean, hey, I want a replica to put on my wall. I mean, I really do like
all of replicas, I have to say.
It's my 401k in case I need to retire or need a quick cash influx.
I've got one replica, and it's the Winged Eagle, original Winged Eagle.
Oh,
and
nice.
That's hanging on the wall in my office in our dojo. So I'm not a huge belt collector, but I want one more, which is the White IC, which I can see you've got there.
Well, I mean, hey, I'd be open for a trade.
Well, let's talk. If I get you a Legacy replica, then you know maybe we could work something out.
Oh, well, viewers, we'll save the business talk for off the stream. You guys can be kept in suspense. Now, obviously, you know, the Combat Legacy would be the crown for James Ellis in a 5-way match. You know, from when you've seen your belt you helped birthed, and obviously someone you respect as a wrestler holding that in the ring with all the fans celebrating, what does that mean for you as a promoter to see the end results of your hard labor?
It was very emotional. Like, it was a lot more emotional than I thought it was going to be, if I'm honest. Like, at that show, it was Send It to the Internet. If you haven't told, just a side note, if you haven't figured out by now, I'm a huge fan of Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. I mean, I'm wearing it now. So this is where No Mercy comes from. A lot of people think it's from No Mercy, the game, but it's actually not. It's from Cobra Kai and Karate Kid No Mercy. Yeah. Hence a few of the show names. Like our first show name was Strike First, Strike Hard. That's our mantra. We have it painted on our wall dojo. It's Strike First, Strike Hard. It's not just a gimmick. It's this is how I look at business. This is how I look at life. It's you got to strike first. You got to strike hard. Otherwise, you ain't going to get anywhere. You can't sit here and wait for things to happen. You got to take it, and that's the way I see it. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Yeah. So seeing that send it to the internet, and seeing James holding that belt up, and I was like, because I was obviously backstage watching a gorilla watching on the monitor, and I was just like, yeah, I got really emotional. I didn't expect it at all. I just thought, yep, there we go, match over, next match. And I was just like, wow, this is something, this is a moment. And everyone in the building could feel it too. And James came back and he was like instantly like a ball of emotion. I grabbed him, gave him a hug. I was like, I'm really proud of you. You know, it was just a great feeling, such a great feeling, because it was like, as you said, it was a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of effort to get to that point, and we hit it. And then the same thing on that night as well. We crowned our Iron Cobra tournament champion, which is Shane Hooker, which is another name everyone is going to be watching next year. He is going to be breaking out. He is unbelievable. So the Iron Cobra tournament is our trainee tournament. And it's just for, or the first one was just for our trainees. The next one, a little bit of an exclusive for you. The next one we're opening up to the rest of the UK for other trainees to come into. So, yeah, more details on that when that happens. But yeah, Shane Hooker was our first Iron Cobra, and he was crowned that night. It's the same night as well. And that was just as, if not more emotional as James winning the belt, because that was like almost a year of hard work, not only for the guys in the tournament training, but for us as well, you know. And excuse me, we wanted to give him, or the winner, we wanted to give the winner something other than just like a belt or a trophy or a medal or whatever. So we obviously, going along with the martial arts gimmick, if you will, that we have, we had a sword or a katana, and on the handle of it is an actual Iron Cobra. It's beautiful. And so we were like, right, we'll use that. We'll give that to the winner. And so Shane, he was in a match with a guy called Kenny Mantra, who's also a very, very good wrestler, very, very underrated here in Wales. And all Kenny needs is that little chance, that little break, just to show everyone what he can do. And he will be one of those names as well next year. So I'm trying to give him and everyone else as many opportunities as I can that I know deserve it. So it was Kenny and Shane in the final. They had an unbelievable match. You can see it on our YouTube, actually. It's a free match up on our YouTube. One hell of a match. Such a good match. And I was so proud watching it. And then Shane won the match, became the Iron Cobra. And then I presented him with the sword, you know, trainer to trainee. And it was like, it was unbelievable. It was like, I don't know what happened, but it was like everyone in that room could feel it. Like everyone, there was not a dry eye in the place. Everyone was crying. I gave him the sword. I gave him a big hug. We both instantly started bawling our eyes out. It was like just a year's worth of effort and determination and grit and compassion and everything just boiling down to this one moment. And it was all done with in that one time. And then we got to like celebrate in the ring. And it was honestly, it was like possibly the best moment in wrestling I've ever had. And it took me a good like 2 or 3 days to come down from that. Like that's the adrenaline rush I was talking about earlier, how you can't replace it. You can never replace that. Like no drug, no alcohol, nothing will replace that high you get from those moments in wrestling. They're just so good.
Man, I mean, I even see just from even the Instagram account, you know, the people liking it, commenting and sharing as well. You really built something special that really connects with people, that draws them in, and that big sense of community as well. So you honestly, mate, hey, be proud of yourself. You've really done exceptional stuff within the wrestling business. Obviously now, you know, Wales as well, just with its history of wrestling as well, you know, obviously WWE bringing over Clash of the Castle. I was there at that show, and that was a fucking atmosphere and a half. I mean, what are your thoughts about like how Wales has been represented, you know, with some great stars coming out of Wales and WWE bringing big shows over? Do you feel like Wales is going to be like maybe one of the big hotspots for the UK in the future for wrestling?
Absolutely. I think it's getting there now. I think we're on our way up on another slope, because we got there before like, don't get me wrong, they were very, very good for the country, but also before NXT UK came along, the UK scene was on in fire. It was like at the top it's ever been. It was so good. And then, don't get me, as I said, NXT UK was great, but I think they kind of diminished that fire a little bit because they took all of the top stars, which was good for all of us because we could then jump into those spots, you know. But and now that they've stopped, it's kind of like everyone has to step down a rung again now. So unfortunate, but hey, it is what it is. But again, they did amazing things. They did really, really good things. But I think Wales has always been a special hotspot in the British wrestling scene. Obviously, like it goes without saying who Wales have produced. You know, like Mark, Wild Boar, Eddie, Flash, Danny Jones. Like the list goes on. You know, and they've been the forefront of that for so many years. And now you've got the new crop coming out. Like you've got Brendan White, and he started New Wave Academy in Newport, and which, by the way, we love working together. Like even though we're still, in a way, we're kind of competitors, if you will, but we don't treat each other like that. We work together. You know, like New Wave have got their second show tomorrow, and we're providing the ring and crew for them. You know, so we always work together, and that's what I think. That's what's really different about Wales right now. Is like most of the companies in Wales are working together, and you don't really get that in the other parts of the country. Not many places anyway. Like you've got, just off the top of my head, there's about 6 or 7 promotions in one very closed off area in the southeast area of Wales, mid to east South Wales, and we all work together. You know, there's us, there's Slam Masters, there's Carnage, there's Defend, there's Modern Nomad. You know, you've got obviously Progress come down now and again, TNT come down, and even when those guys come into, if you will, our territory, it's not as if they're like, oh, we're coming in, you don't matter. They bring us all in. We work together. Like Clash at the Castle, as you said, I was there as well. But after the show, well, before the show, we went over to ICW. They were running in the Union, and we helped set up. So again, a great show of togetherness. They brought trainees from New Wave Academy. They brought trainees from No Mercy in, and they were like, look, this is your guys' home. We're coming in. Please come and enjoy the show with us. Help us out, you know. And that's what we did. We went in, we set up the show. We ran across the stadium, enjoyed Catch the Castle. We ran back over to the Union, and then we did the midnight ICW show. So it was crazy. And then the next day was Progress. So it was a crazy weekend. But yeah, it just shows like the solidarity of promotions in Wales. And I think that's what the main difference is about Wales to everywhere else in the country, is that we've got such a strong community of different promotions, different schools that are working together. We're not trying to hinder each other. We're not trying to compete. Well, there's a healthy competition, of course, but we're not. There's a lot of like old school dinosaur ways where, you know, you put a poster up and then the next day you come and a rival company have ripped it down or put their own on top of it or something. Like those days, like they don't belong here anymore. Like that's an old way of doing it. They need to get in the bin. And, you know, the more forward-thinking companies in Wales are now working together, and we're getting rid of all that crap because it doesn't belong, and it should have died its death years ago. So, and I think that's the main reason why Wales is becoming a big hotbed again. It's. I reckon next year Wales will be like one of the, if not the biggest territories, if you will, in the UK. I would say.
Well, hey, I'm rooting for you guys. Don't worry. I mean, I remember traveling down to Cardiff for Clash at the Castle on a train, and it was a nightmare. No alcohol on the train, so I was over. Oh my god! But hey, again in that arena, a few pints and I was good. I mean, the atmosphere in that arena though was fucking amazing, and it just shows that UK crowds really are the best in the world, aren't we?
Yeah. It's like it was the atmosphere in the whole city though. It was insane. Like everywhere you walked, it was a wrestling fan. Like it was so good, and like especially for us, like smaller companies, it was perfect for us because you could walk around the corner and give a flyer to every single person you saw, and that's what we did. I think I gave out like 1,000 flyers that weekend, or probably more. It was just constantly like, oh, you like wrestling. This show is running. This show is running. Come see us. I gave out like free stickers and loads of stuff like that, like loads of swag. And people would be like, oh yeah, but you're spending money on that. You're losing money. I'm like, no. That to me, that's worth the investment, because now, if 100 people from how many were this? 50, 60,000?
Mhm.
If 200 people from that 60,000 people in that city that day come away going, this is a new place, No Mercy. Oh, I'm going to check these guys out. That's my job done. I'm happy. Like that's 200 people I never would have got any other way. So Clash WWE coming to Cardiff was nothing but good for us, I don't think, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely as well. I mean, I remember just walking around the streets as well and just seeing people outside of bars hitting people with steel chairs and like doing music. I was like, fuck me, it's like Scotland at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night.
It was crazy. It was crazy. I was walking down to Clash after coming from ICW. We were walking down, where were we? St. Mary Street. Walking down this. No, anyone that doesn't live in Cardiff, this is not going to make any sense to you, but don't worry. We were walking down St. Mary Street, turned the corner to go down to the stadium, and I, like you said, I saw a big crowd, and I was like, I'm sure that sounds like a steel chair. Surely not. People aren't doing this. And like you said, yeah, there was a big crowd gathered, and there was just cheers. There was like, I'm sure I saw a fake leg, walking sticks, everything. I was like, what is going on? This is amazing. I loved it. And I turned the corner, and it was bloody Mad Kurt and Session Moth Martina. And I was like, what are you guys doing? They were like, oh, we're just having a laugh. They were just sat outside a pub, just having a hardcore match. I'm like, all right, cool. I guess this is what happens now. Sound. But that was the great thing about Clash. Like, not only was it great for fans, but like as wrestlers on the lower level or the lower scale from WWE, it was great seeing people that we only get to see now and again on different shows because people from say up north or Liverpool, Scotland way, or Manchester, whatever. Being in Wales, you only get to see them now and again on certain shows. So it was great seeing everyone in the same place, having a drink with everyone. Like, as I said, like Matt Curtis, Sash Martina were there, like seeing all the Welsh guys and just everyone. It was just great seeing everyone that you'd only see on a show now and again, all having a great time and being there for the same reason as well. That was the main thing. But yeah, it was an absolutely crazy weekend.
Yeah, I mean, even the wrestlers I've had who were there, Shaman A, Visage, Daisy Jenkins, and James Ellis as well, just talking about the environment as well, just that close knit of community and just really enjoying the whole atmosphere as well. I mean, even though I was disappointed with the main event ending, I wanted my boy Drew to win, but the tribal twats got to win, of course. I mean, okay, fair enough, I'll take it. But for obviously the future with WrestleMania, I've always asked every guest from the UK, if WWE were to come over and host a WrestleMania in the UK, where do you think it should be held?
I mean, I'm obviously going to be biased and say Cardiff. That would be the biased, selfish thing for me to say. But realistically, it's probably going to be Wembley. I'm going to guess. It should probably be Wembley, just to be a whole full circle for SummerSlam in '92. So even though it's a different Wembley, but still, it probably. I'd love to see it in Cardiff, but if it were to happen, I would assume it would be Wembley. Even though it would still be amazing, of course. Like, WrestleMania in the UK would be crazy. It would.
That would be a public holiday. Get King Charles to make that a public holiday. We'll take the day off work.
Well, that's the good thing about it too. Is like it wouldn't just be the one day. There would be the whole. It'd probably be 2 weeks worth of stuff going on. So for smaller wrestling companies, it would be a gold mine. It would be perfect for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, viewers, have you been following on that? The record for WrestleMania UK is 4 to Wales, 3 to London, and 0 to Scotland. Apparently, our weather is shit, and we can't post anything up here. Can't even host a World Cup. I mean, come on. We've got the alcohol, we've got the people. I mean, it's the weather. I'm blaming it on the weather.
It's the weather. What's the biggest stadium you guys have, though?
I mean, it's probably a pitch out somewhere in Musselburgh. That's probably the best place for it.
Because I think that's the thing that's letting you guys down is the capacity.
Well, I guess I'll get the SMP on and we'll make something happen. Get sponsored by Iron Brew. We'll host something, boys. We'll host something.
Sturgeon on the game. She'll be sorted. She'll sort it out.
Oh,
but that's the thing. So you got because the Millennium Stadium, or Principality, we know as Millennium Stadium. It's like up to 80,000. So it's perfect. Wembley, I don't even know what that is now. It's like 100 or something like that. Something stupid, but I think WrestleMania needs those numbers. Otherwise, it's not a WrestleMania. It doesn't feel special. Like WrestleMania 2000, I think was like held in like a small little arena. I say small. for WrestleMania standards, it was only like 13, 14,000 people, which is tiny compared to what it is now. So, and you do see that you feel the difference. There's an atmosphere, there's a feeling, and I think like Clash, I don't think it would have worked if it was anywhere else. If it was anywhere smaller, it wouldn't have felt as special as it did, because it would just been another live event.
No, very true indeed as well. Now, obviously, we've got, we're not ending of the year just yet. We still have the whole month of the Christmas to come along, and I know No Mercy's got a Cobra Caliber Christmas coming up, if I'm correct as well.
Yeah,
and my boy James Ellis, and is actually defending the Combat Legacy Championship against Harley Hudson.
Correct. Yeah.
How did that all come about?
Well, as I said, I love giving opportunities to people that wouldn't normally get them elsewhere, and I love bringing good, experienced workers and good names down to No Mercy to let my guys work with them and get the experience, So, and Harley, I spoke to Harley on a couple of Chaos shows ago, because we provide the ring and crew services for Chaos, and amazing shows as well. If you haven't checked out Pro Wrestling Chaos, definitely do it. They're doing some great things. We've actually got a show with them this weekend, actually. But I spoke to Harley Hudson there on one of the last Chaos shows, and I know Harley is great anyway. I've seen a lot of her work online, but actually seeing her in person, I was like, I'm even more impressed now, because like she's just great. She's just fantastic. And what really resonates with me, what really makes a difference with me personally, is if the person is a nice person too. If you're respectful and you're a good person, that goes a long way with me. And Harley is brilliant, such a nice person. So it was a no-brainer. I've wanted to bring her down for a while, and then the dates lined up, so I was like, let's do it. So we've got a huge lineup for that show. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that match is be an interesting one, to say the least, because that's the thing about our titles. Obviously, we've only got the Combat Legacy at the moment, but when we get eventually all of them, they're going to be open. So they're not going to be any gender titles. It's not going to be a women's championship. All the titles will be open to everyone, and that's the way I've always wanted it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So the standard is usually just have a men and women championship. Do you feel like maybe something in the future we could see is just a stripping of those sort of labels and just having the one world championship that everyone can go for?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I want to see it. I mean, I don't see what the issue is with, for lack of a better term, intergender wrestling. I just see it as wrestling. I don't see it as, a man wrestling a woman or a woman wrestling a man or anything like that. It's, to me, everyone is a wrestler and everyone is talented in their own right. So, but then you've also got to think of it from a shoot point of view. It's like people are like, oh, well, I don't want to see a man hitting a woman. I'm like, dude, it's wrestling. Come on, it's not as if we're putting up on the screen CCTV footage of a man beating his wife. It's wrestling. It's the same as if you saw EastEnders and, do you know what I mean? So without going too far into that, it's, at the end of the day, we are a bunch of grown-up children pretend fighting in our underwear. So let's not take too serious with it, No, that's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I've had people who've been in entertainment. Eric Schultz faced against Sky Blue in the States. He talked about how he was absolutely fine with it. The opponent's fine with it, and he's fine with it, no problems. And Daisy Jenkins as well. She had an interim match against Jason Reed. Yep. Same thing there. It's not for everybody. That's fine. You can mind your own little pick and mix wherever you want.
Exactly.
The performers are happy, then hey, let it be.
That's the way I see it. Yeah, it's all about personal preference. If you like it, cool. If you don't, that's also cool. Whatever. But like me personally, I'm not a huge fan of deathmatch wrestling. Don't get me wrong. I know that most of the people that do it are skilled and can create a story, and I can see why people would enjoy it. But I'll never shit on it because that's someone's opinion. That's someone's personal choice. If you like Queen and I like Michael Jackson, it's the same thing. It's just different personal choices. So if someone shouldn't say you should stop doing that because I don't like it, that's when the issue arises. Like this whole thing that we had on Twitter with Scotty Too Hotty recently. That was ridiculous. Like, I've had Scotty over on one of my shows, and he is the nicest person you will ever meet in wrestling. He's such a nice dude, and I hate Twitter. Sometimes I really hate it sometimes. Like it's a necessity because for business and stuff like that. But if I didn't have to have it, I wouldn't have it. But sometimes some of the things that people come out on Twitter with, like, it's unbelievable. It really, really is. Like people attacking him, saying, "Oh, he's a misogynist. He doesn't think women are equals." Like the bloke didn't say anything to do with that. He was just like, "Look, it's not for me. I don't want to do it. If you like it, cool." That's all it was. Yeah. It's Twitter being Twitter, unfortunately.
Can we go back to the good old days of MySpace? Can we sacrifice Twitter?
Yes.
Revive MySpace?
When the most we had to worry about was your top 8 friends.
How the world has changed, my friend. How the world has fucking changed. Well, Ben, I appreciate you coming on the show. You know, our time is ending here, but I really appreciate you coming on. And I want the viewers to know, what can they expect from No Mercy Wrestling in 2023?
Well, we have a lot of shows coming up. We're going to up our show count. We did, because we started in March of this year, and we did a couple aside that weren't really canon, if you will, with our storylines. I think we are in December 18th. Our Christmas show will be our 8th show for the year. So we're going to try and up it to possibly 10 to 12. We've got 8 shows confirmed. Obviously, I'll release those dates as and when we come to it. But yeah, we're going to be upping our show count a lot more, which is good. New venues. We're going to be branching out a lot more into different areas of the country. Can't say too much more about that right now, but we've got a very, very big plan for October of next year, which I know is quite far away. Again, can't say too much about it right now, but it's going to be big. It's going to be very, very big. It'll be in Wales as well. So, but yeah, we're just going upwards, really, just constantly looking forward, constantly looking up. Obviously, as I said earlier, we're going to have new belts. We're going to have the championship belt. We're going to bring in tag belts as well, because I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling. So got to have the tag belts. Got to do it.
Excellent. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah,
I know.
Hopefully,
I'll be protecting my boy James Ellis. I mean, I'm keeping that championship on. If you see me there, my aviators on, bottle of whiskey and a metal bat, you know why I'm there. I'm keeping the belt on my boy.
Definitely. And yeah, hopefully we can get the academy and get the school going a bit further on and give some of our guys a lot more opportunities, because that's the aim of it at the end of the day.
No, providing an opportunity for everyone is what we want to see, you know, to help elevate the new generation of wrestlers who are going to be the main eventers of the big shows and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. And then if I have some time, I'll try and focus on my own wrestling career as well.
Well, I'm sure you'll be, with that look, mate. Fuck me, you'll be shooting for the stars with that look.
Thank you.
Well, Ben, thank you very much for coming on the show, pal. And to our viewers, remember to check out No Mercy Wrestling. We'll have their Instagram down in the below. Check out their shows, their matches, and everything. Their YouTube channel.
There's one thing I've noticed. My tag is wrong there at the bottom.
Oh, I'm gonna right. You know what I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna get that metal bat. I'm going over to my graphic boy's house, and I'm gonna.
That's fine. It's just like, it's everything on socials: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. It's No Mercy Wrestle with an E, not an ING.
I'm gonna beat that boy's head, and that's what I do.
It's fine. I thought I'd point it out.
But hey, good to point out the mistakes. Now I know that he's docking his pay. Grant. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show, pal. All the viewers, remember to check out Wrestle Republic. All your wrestling needs. It's been another episode of the Soul Sessions, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.